Hey, what's up, everybody? Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Shape the Podcast. I, of course, am your host, Kyle Waller. As you can tell, yes, let's just get the housekeeping out of the way. All right. I did shave off my beard. All right. I know a lot of you are going to be upset. It's okay. Don't, don't cry. All right. Yes, I have a mustache right now, and it will only be on for a small period of time. Okay. And then I'll go babyface, and then you'll all be okay because you really won't recognize me then. All right. But yes, just wanted to get that out of the way real quick, so no question would arise during the podcast of what happened to your beard. Oh my God, because we all know that this is not a bearding podcast. All right. Next, next thing I want to get out of the way is lovely friend of the show, Miss Natalie Johnson. Everybody knows her. If you've been in the bearding community for a while. She finally is going to be having a kidney transplant. All right. That transplant is stated to take place on November the 13th. So, uh, congratulations to her for getting that kidney. I think it's awesome, and it's coming from a member of the bearding community, uh, guy by the name of Alan Eckert. All right, so that's awesome that she was able to get that kidney finally. So yeah, remember Natalie Johnson on November the 13th, as she has her kidney transplant. Well, I'm not going to mess around tonight much because tonight's episode is going to feature a pretty awesome guy. Um, Everybody knows him if you're in the breeding community. If not, you'll get to know him tonight. Uh, my guest for the evening is Brad Felipe Gonzalez El Taco Petrinec. He is from Detroit. Yes, I heard it out there. I heard all you say "f you." Don't worry, I heard it. All right, well, so let's bring on my good friend Brad and welcome him to the podcast. What's up, sir?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man. So did you heard it too? You heard everybody say "f you" in the background when I said Detroit. Yep.
No, I didn't. But you know what's really weird is I have two monitors and I have my Facebook on this one and
Yeah.
I can see I shared this live stream and I can
Yeah.
see it on this screen and it's totally delayed and it's fucking me up. So
Yes.
I gotta get rid of
Yeah. Look, there it is.
that. I gotta,
Mr. Brian Klein threw out a "fuck you" for Detroit.
whoop
Uh,
whoop.
so those of you who are not familiar with that, um, the Murder City Facial Hair Crew, just real quick, just a breeding tad bit. They're from Detroit, and so their whole thing is when somebody says Detroit in a loving, gentle, caring way, the crowd yells back, "Fuck you." Okay? So that is it. So Brad, introduce yourself. A lot of people that are watching right now know who you are, but most don't. So let people know who you are, man.
Okay. Well, my name is Brad Petrinec. I'm from the Metro Detroit area. I currently live in East Point, Michigan, which is just on the border of Detroit. I have lived in Detroit in the past, but I grew up in the suburbs in Clarkston, Michigan. I don't know. Do you want me to actually get into my story
Oh,
now?
dude, yeah. Just roll into it.
Cool. All right. Let's go. All right. So right off the bat, you know what? I won't tell you all that yet. So I grew up in
Suspense.
Clarkston, Michigan, which is a somewhat affluent area in the suburbs of Michigan. It's Oakland County, which is one of the richest counties in Michigan. Um, we weren't rich by any means, but we weren't poor either.
Yeah.
Um, to start, anyways, we're middle class. Um, yeah, I don't know. I had a pretty normal upbringing to start. A good family. My parents were married until I was 11. They got divorced when I was 11, and that's when things started to get kind of weird.
All right.
So I used to dance. I used to compete in jazz, tap, ballet, whatever, and
I,
something.
I I could totally see that. I could totally see you putting on the on the jazz shoes and
Yeah, yeah. So I did until I was in eighth grade.
nice.
But when I was 11 years old, I actually was molested by an older guy that I danced with.
Yeah.
Um, he was 18, I was 11, and it kind of fucked me up a little bit, I would say.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, as you can imagine, it just like messed with my mind. I was like, man, why did this happen to me? I trusted this person, and
Yeah.
it got a little weird.
Yeah. Totally.
But whatever. That was one of the many things that shaped me at that age. My parents getting divorced was another thing that shaped me.
Yeah.
Happens. Relationships don't always work, but when you're a kid, you don't realize that it's not your fault. You kind of think it is or whatever, and you don't really know what's going on. And it wasn't so much the divorce that. Yeah, it was. I don't know. It was a rough time, but whatever. My childhood went from being pretty normal to not so normal. But honestly, like before that, I kind of never really felt like I fit in, and I was always like seeking approval. And I feel like that's everybody when they're young, though. Like when you're
most definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like when you're a kid, you just don't feel like you fit in. But I always felt like I needed to fit in. Like I needed to do something different. I needed something to like make connections with people and be the cool kid or whatever, and just to get outside of myself. And yeah, I remember when I turned 13 years old. Not when I turned, but when I was 13 years old, a friend of mine brought an alcohol concoction on the bus to school, and he's like, "Here, try this." It was vodka and Pepsi and Kool-Aid.
Ooh.
Like, what the fuck? But yeah, so I drank it, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" Like that was like that was cool to me. Yeah,
it was quite disgusting.
No, it was horrible, but like I loved it. It was great. So I remember after that, like raiding my mom's cabinet. My parents were already divorced at the time, obviously. My mom lived in an apartment. My dad lived in a house. And yeah, I don't know. I remember raiding her liquor cabinet for vodka and making that same concoction. And yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. And then a year later, I tried smoking weed for the first time. And I remember really loving that too. And then like I was after I smoked weed, I kind of figured, yeah, I'll just try whatever comes along. Like I love it. It's like it's making me feel like I fit in. It's like it's the solution to my problems.
Yeah.
And like I had typical problems of any, typical suburban white kid growing up. Like it wasn't like anything horrible. There wasn't. Like I said, I grew up in a pretty good family. There were some issues for sure. There were some things that happened during the divorce and after the divorce and with some of my family members and whatnot. But I don't want to bring anybody else's shit into my story. Just know that, like, yeah, I didn't have it super easy, but I didn't have it super bad either.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I grew up in the suburbs, and the only issues I had back when I was a kid was, I mean, I did get picked on a lot, but it was like, oh man, what girl am I going to talk to today, or what? Am I going to be cool with wearing these shoes, to school, this and that? Yeah. So
yeah. I think mine was more like there were some issues with some violence and whatever at home, but nothing horrible. Like no bones were broken or anything like that. Like it was just, there were some things that happened. And, but once again, like I have a great family and everything is definitely resolved now. I mean, I'm fucking 42 years old and like anybody that was violent when I was younger is not anymore. And, we all have our own issues.
Oh no. Hold up. Camera down.
Yeah. But anyways, the story, I'm telling my story. I don't want to tell their stories. So.
Yes, Brad, you're correct. Brad has a nice stash. Okay.
Actually, that's you, man.
He's talking about my stash.
Yeah, I know.
For those of you who just joined, you see I now have a stash. It's okay. Don't cry. You'll be okay.
When I was on the podcast on Tuesday, I had a beard. And also mustache today.
It's amazing because I had a beard on Tuesday.
Yeah, so hey.
So yes, let's get
Team
back
mustache, dude. It's the way to go. I mean, it really is the best facial hairstyle. No, it is. I mean, but whatever. That's not what this is about. We're not talking facial here. All right. So let me get back into um, my upbringing. So I
Yeah.
thought I found the solution in, smoking weed and drinking and whatever. But as I got older, I got into hallucinogens, tried acid and mushrooms and all of that. And then I also got into powder drugs when I got even a little bit older. Started doing cocaine and crystal meth and ketamine,
Yeah.
and all of that. I got into selling drugs to support my habit. I don't know. I grew up in the punk scene, and at punk shows, these things were pretty prevalent. I remember the first time I ate acid, I went to a punk show afterwards, and I had skipped work that day.
All right.
And my dad, I remember he found out, they called home or whatever. I worked at McDonald's at the time. I was 15 years old, and I went to a punk show at the local Alano Club. You know what an Alano Club is, right? It's An Alano Club is where they hold AA meetings and recovery meetings.
All right, gotcha. Yeah.
It is specifically for people in recovery that are trying to overcome substance abuse.
Yes.
But something they did to make a little extra money on the weekends to help pay their bills was they let a promoter come in and throw local punk shows.
Oh, that's
yeah, it was awesome. Wow. We loved it, and it was in the town I grew up in. But I remember going up there. I was on acid. So my first time eating acid, I went to a place where there's not supposed to be drugs.
Yeah. Where people are supposedly sober.
Yeah, they're trying to be, but I wasn't one of them. I was there for the show.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting inside, tripping, whatever. Oh, this is cool. And my brother comes in. He's like, "Dad wants to talk to you." My dad had dropped my brother off because him and I were close in age. We both grew up going to punk shows and skateboarding and all of that. Yeah. And he's like, "Dad wants to talk to you." He's in the car in the parking lot. I'm like, "Fuck." So I'm tripping on acid, and I go out there and I sit in the back seat of the car, and I'm like, "Hey, Dad." And he was mad. He was pissed because I skipped work that day. He's like, "They're gonna fire you," blah blah blah. I'm like, "I'm so sorry," whatever. But I had no idea what was going on. All I can remember is looking at my dad in the rear view mirror from the back seat, and his face turned green and started melting. I'm just like, "Whoa, this is so fucked up." So that was my first LSD experience. That was interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun. And then
I mean, you were so messed up. You're like, yeah, okay, Dad, whatever.
Yeah. And that's kind of was the story of my life up until I got sober, except for things got harder and harder and worse and worse.
Well, I can tell you that I remember the first time I did shrooms, I went to a Dave Matthews concert. Yeah. Believe me.
Well, I feel like that's expected there.
Oh, the concert didn't get any better, if that helps you out.
Yeah. Now, careful. Melissa Crafton's going to get pissed if you're talking shit about Dave Matthews.
Hey, why do you think I threw that out there? Maybe she'll watch the podcast and see that.
Good.
But yeah, let's continue, sir.
Okay. So as time progresses, I'm not doing great in high school. Right. So I decide okay, I'm going to quit everything and get my grades up and whatever. And honestly, I was always constantly battling. It was always drugs were the problem, but really I was the problem. I always thought that the drugs and alcohol were the problem, the hallucinogens and I remember taking painkillers in high school and all of this. And I started things at a young age, but I didn't get into the really, really hard stuff until I turned 18. Once I turned 18, everything it was oh, I can leave the house whenever I want. I don't have a curfew anymore. My parents let me do a little bit more than what I should, or let me do more than they used to let me. I was
they didn't know what you were doing, but they gave you enough freedom to where they probably knew.
Yeah, and honestly, so actually the first time I got arrested, I was 17 years old, and I got arrested for possession of marijuana. I was at a field party, and you had to sell acid at the door of Pantera's. Nice.
All right.
Okay, so the first time I got arrested, we were at a field party, and we were smoking weed in a car, and cops pull up behind us. We're like, "Oh, fuck!" We had nowhere to go. We're literally parked in this field, but there's trees all around, so it wasn't really a field, but it was We had a big fire going. Like, there was nothing we could do, right? We couldn't run. There was like not really anywhere to run. So I was like, okay, well, this sucks. So I remember like dropping my bowl, and all the weed was mine. So I dropped the bowl in the car. It wasn't my car though, but I dropped all my stuff in there and got out, and they searched the car and they find it. They're like, all right, whose is this? And I was like, I'm not going to pin it on anybody else, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to fess up to my mistakes. So I was like, it's mine. So yeah, I remember they took me to the police station and arrested me, and my dad ended up picking me up, and he was not a happy camper. And yeah, that was my first bout with the law. And then my first bout with any sort of like recovery meeting was because of that. They put me on probation, and actually, I don't think they actually put me on probation. I think they fined me and made me take some classes on drugs. And those classes were my first experience with anything recovery, right?
Yep.
They were my first like, hey, you should do better. Yeah. And I didn't stay sober, of course, but I did like every once in a while I would stop for a while to get my grades up or whatever. But yeah, so fast forward, I'm, still going to punk shows all the time. And then I start going to rave parties. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the
There
rave
you go.
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rave scene back in the late 90s, early
Old
2000s.
warehouses, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Used to
Detroit
go
was
to
the
them.
king of the rave parties, man. Like we had the best parties because we had the most abandoned buildings. It was a good time. Plus Detroit techno, that's where it was born. Like it was happening in that time. And honestly, like 96, 97, I guess was even better, but I didn't get into it until 99. But yeah, I remember partying in those abandoned buildings, and then crystal meth was fucking everywhere. Ketamine was everywhere, Special K, ketamine. Ecstasy was everywhere. Now they call it Molly and give the pure shit, but dude, we had it, and it was cut with heroin and cut with meth. So
as Jeff Harris just said, turbo wafers.
I don't even know what turbo wafers are.
I don't know, but I'm about to find out.
Yeah. So, anyways, I was going to a lot of parties, taking a lot of drugs, selling a lot of drugs. Things progressively got worse. And then I remember going down, like, I think I was 18 at the time. And I remember buying my first bag of Coke at a rave party in Chicago. Tried that, fucking loved it. Ended up getting a decent Coke hookup, selling it to supply my habit. And then I got into, I remember we were at a house or an apartment. We hung out at this apartment all the time. It was basically a flop house. Where we all were all drugged out, hung out there all the time. If anybody's seen the movie like Party Monster, that was very much what my life was like. It was like a combination of Party Monster and ended up becoming Trainspotting. Familiar with any of those movies? That was kind of what my life turned into. And then a little bit of SLC punk in there too.
Yeah,
I think that's a good way to describe how I grew up. But anyways, we were at a house party, and my good friend, she's one of my best friends, her brother was there. He was older, and he was into heroin and crack. And I remember asking him, like, hey, can we get some heroin? Like, I want to try it. I've never tried it. Fuck it. It sounds fun. So we went down to Detroit. We went down to like Brightmoor, which is a pretty rough area. And went to one of his dealers, and they didn't have any heroin, but they did have crack. So he was like, well, do you want to get this instead? And like, yeah, fuck it, whatever. And I remember taking I think he bought crack, and we just didn't get anything, but he let me try it. And yeah, that was when things took off. And I had already done heroin once before because my friend, whose brother it was, had given me some at one point. So I knew I liked it. And then I like fell in love with crack too. But heroin was really like my first love. And that, like, it was a downhill spiral very fast, very, very fast. Things got bad. I ended up like getting real bad. There was one point where I had been strung out on heroin for a while, like, and for anybody who knows what it's like to be strung out, like, it's where you're doing it constantly, and eventually you're doing it so much just to maintain so you don't get sick. Because
you're just chasing the dragon, so to speak.
Anyway, so what happens is when you're strung out on heroin, if you don't have it, you get sick. It makes you have to poop really bad because heroin actually constipates you, or opiates constipate you. So anybody that's taken a painkiller knows this.
Snorted a couple in my lifetime.
Yeah. So anyways, I was strung out for a little while, and then I ended up picking up a bunch of like I think I worked security for GM, which, by the way, that's where I met Chapo. Is when I worked security for GM, he worked there as well. He was like the head of the fire security, and he was great. We used to talk music all the time. He knew that I was like into drugs a little bit, but I was pretty bad. And while I was working there, I had gotten paid one day, and I flipped a pound of weed, so I made some cash off that. And spent back in 2001 or something like that, I spent over $1,000 on drugs just getting high in a weekend. And like back then, that was a lot of money. I'm sure it's still a lot of money now, but like back then, it was a lot more money. I remember I actually shot 3 bottles of ketamine in a night. Usually you snort it, but I had started shooting it. And to do usually you do like 1/10 of a bottle, and that's like enough to get you high. But I did 3 bottles, so that's like 3. I think it's 3 grams or something. It was a lot. It was
a lot.
Yeah, it was enough to where like my friends were debating on taking me to the hospital because they thought I was going to die. They thought I was basically dead. And I was also on morphine and a whole bunch of other stuff because I was strung out. And I went to a rave party that weekend, and I introduced myself to good friends of mine repeatedly because I had no idea who they were. I didn't really know what was going on. And that was the weekend that I decided that maybe it's time to go to rehab. So that was when I went to rehab the first time, was shortly after that. I remember talking to my boss, and he actually was a former police chief for a former Detroit police chief, and then, retired from there and became head of security for GM. And I let him know, I'm like, listen, like I've got a problem. I need help. And I'm actually trying to get into rehab, but I need to take some time off. And he's like, okay, you can have time off. And so I was in rehab for 21 days. And that's where I met actually a good friend of mine, Zach. When I got out, I stayed sober the night that I got out. And I was drinking Sprite all night. My friends actually my good friend Kirk had an apartment. He had just gotten out of prison. And he got an apartment, and like basically right after he got out of prison, I went to rehab. And he's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, you just got out and you're leaving me and whatever. And so anyways, I got out. I drank Sprite the whole night. And then another friend of mine that morning when we woke up at 9 a.m. cracked a beer and handed it to me. And I was like, fuck it. Okay, I made it the first night. I can do this. So I got drunk. And then within a week, I was shooting heroin. Before that, I had only snorted. And then I was shooting. And then, then I was strung out for another year and a half. Ended up becoming homeless. My family had disowned me. All of my friends had pretty much disowned me. Nobody wanted anything to do with me. I remember I did have a friend before when I was trying to get into rehab. My friend had talked to his parents and said, hey, can he stay with us and sleep on the couch for a while? He's trying to get into rehab. And they said, yes. They're like, yeah, he can stay here. But like that's the stipulation is he has to fucking go to rehab and clean up. And so I was staying there, and I needed something to calm myself from the withdrawals, and they gave me a bunch of muscle relaxers and sleeping pills to help. And I remember leaving there and going to a house party of one of my friends.
As Andrew says, this story is unfortunately all too common. That is true. But real quick, I hate to cut to you, Brad. Marty just wrote this. He said, a lot of what you guys are saying is what I'm dealing with now. I do not have an addiction, but I'm battling and going through anxiety and mental health, which I feel like is just as hard. I've been in the dark part of the tunnel lately. I'm going through this alone without support or help from family, which makes it rough. Just need someone to talk to about what's going on. Well, hey, Marty, guess what? This podcast isn't affiliated with any type of, AANA or mental health group, but we're all here to support each other no matter what. So if you want to reach out to me or Andrew or Brad or anybody else,
Yeah, dude,
dude,
I'm happy to
do it.
chat.
You know, we've all been there. I tell you, I deal with it a lot. You know, but this podcast is what helps me and reminds me that no matter what shit I'm going through, you know, that make us stronger than who we are. So yeah, if you want to, man, reach out to anybody, you know, and thank you for sharing. So let's get back to Brad. Thank you, Marty. We appreciate it.
So yeah, I'm happy to talk to anybody after this. If anybody needs help with anything.
Oh, holy cow! Look at this, Josh Kim, Mr. Josh Kim. What's up,
Hey,
sir?
Josh, I miss you, man. Okay, so
and yes,
yeah, so I had
that is right. It's fentanyl. That's correct.
yeah. All right. So I had taken a bunch of sleeping pills and some muscle relaxers. I went to a friend's house who was having people over, and I remember knocking on the door, and my sister was there. Well, my sister was dating that said friend.
Yeah.
And she answered the door. She's like, "Get the fuck out of here. I don't want you here. I don't want to see you." She was very, very adamant that I leave. I was like, "No, I'm not leaving. I'm staying here, whatever." But I was so like fucked up from the sleeping pills and muscle relaxers, but also still very much going through withdrawals from heroin and not feeling pleasant. But I couldn't control my bladder. And I just started peeing my pants right there on the porch before I even stepped in while my sister was berating me. And it was embarrassing to say the least.
Yeah.
And the thing is at that moment in time, I felt no shame. I didn't care. It was like, whatever. Yeah. But now when I think back on it and look at it, I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like what? I was a mess. Yeah. I was an absolute mess. And I'm thankful that people have allowed me back in their lives.
Dude. And you're able to look back on it and be like, holy fuck.
Like, so I went from there. Was on the couch for a few more days, still in those piss-soaked jeans. And I was getting a hold of everybody I could. And I used to steal bottles of liquor and sell them to get heroin. I also used to steal Similac and sell it to party stores to get heroin. And there were party stores or convenience stores, as a lot of people call them. Yep. I found out when I moved to Worcester, Massachusetts, that they don't call convenience stores party stores there. I would be like, hey, yeah, just go to the party store. And they're like, what the fuck? You mean like a party city? I'm like, what are you talking about?
Party stores were like Party City or liquor stores.
Yeah, they call them packies there, the package stores. Go to the packy. I'm like, what the fuck is a packy? But anyways, I regret. So I had $40 on me. So I called my buddy because I had sold a bottle of liquor. I had called my buddy who I would get high with a lot.
All right.
And he lived in Troy. I was in Clarkston on my friend's couch still trying to get into rehab. And actually, I ended up getting on a wait list. And so I was on a wait list to get into rehab. So I was already like 1 foot in the door. But I got a hold of my buddy. I was like, hey, you got to come pick me up. I got some money. Let's go get high. And he's like, okay, I need money for gas and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, no problem. I had $40 fucking, dude. Like, that's not like we needed money for gas. Like, that's going to get us like a couple of packs. So we put $10 in the gas tank and bought 3 packs of heroin. And we tried to sell. So he stole his mom's truck to come pick me up. And we tried to sell the truck to the dope man. The dope man did not want it. Actually told us it was too new and would be too easily.
Yeah. It needed to be a beater.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no, man, it's too new. I don't want it. I want nothing to do with it. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. So I was like, well, yo, dude, let's go hit a lick. Let's just go to a grocery store and I will come out with a bunch of Similac and we'll be fine. So we did. We went to 2 different grocery stores. First one I went to, I just got a bunch of DVDs. The second one we went to, so we shot that dope, obviously. So I was a little bit high. I hadn't done any in a few days. I had been going through the withdrawals. So it was enough to get rid of the withdrawals and make me a little spacey, right? So I'm wandering around this store, and it's late at night by this time. It's it was Farmer Jack's at the time, which used to exist. They are no
Right.
longer a thing, but some of you may remember Farmer Jack's. So I remember walking around the store, just filling up a basket. First thing I did was fill it up with 12 Similacs, 12 bottles of Similac. And then I put in some Gatorade, and because I'd been homeless, so I grabbed a bunch of Snickers and
Yep.
candy, because that's what I lived off of. I didn't eat regular food. I ate candy because
Yeah.
my stomach was fucking
Sugar.
fucked
Yep.
from, I needed sugar. I didn't need food.
Yep.
Fuck food.
Yeah.
So I'm filling it with all this stuff. Now, mind you, I was probably in there for like an hour filling stuff up, and there's nobody else in the store. It was very obvious. I'm walking around in my piss-soaked jeans, long sleeves on a hot day to cover up my track marks. Like,
Yeah.
I'm greasy as fuck. I smell like shit. Like, it's very obvious that I was a homeless person, B, a junkie, and C, my buddy was in the front of the store in his truck with it running. So they knew that I was up to no good. It was very fucking obvious. I was not a smart criminal. I was a criminal for sure, but I was not a smart one.
Yeah. No, because I mean, come on now. You gave it away.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, anyways, I ran out the store with my basket full of Similac and miscellaneous goods, and hopped in the car. And as we pulled off, 7 cop cars surrounded us. They hopped out with guns drawn, pointed at us, and said, "Put your hands in the fucking air, like, fuck." And yeah, so we got arrested. His car was impounded. The car was impounded. They got me on retail fraud, second-degree retail fraud. And I remember that was actually the last time I got high. That was September 10th of 2003. I've been sober since 9/11/03. And I remember like going in front of the magistrate the next morning saying, "Listen, I'm on a waiting list to get into rehab. I need help. Please just let me sober up, or let me get sober. Let me do this on my own." So they ended up, eventually they gave me a PR bond on the as long as I got into a treatment center, and they set it all up. They got me into a treatment center. It was through the courts. It was inpatient, obviously. So I was in the treatment center for 45 days. But I remember when I first walked in, there were no bars, there were nothing locking me in. It was all open in Pontiac, Michigan, which is kind of hood. There's plenty of dope in Pontiac. I knew where to cop dope in Pontiac.
And that's amazing, because like, so when I was in like the sober houses, the halfway houses, guess where they were? They were in the hood. They were right down the street from the dealers' houses.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's what they did, because I mean, here you are, hey, you're trying to be sober, you're trying to get sober, you want to be strong enough to stay sober. Guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna put our halfway house right smack dab in the middle of Drug City, and we're gonna see if you can make it or not. See if you really want what you really want.
So that's the unfortunate thing about our society is there are certain areas where they put the unwanted, and sober houses are not wanted in affluent areas. They are wanted to. They want to keep those. That is a completely different topic that we could talk about. How fucked up our society is, and how fucked up. But
I just find
how certain people have no fucking chance. I grew up in an affluent area, and I had every opportunity presented to me, and I still fucked up. There's other people that grow up in the areas where those sober houses are, where everybody around them sells drugs. There's gangs everywhere. It's almost impossible not to join a gang, and somehow they still make it out and get college degrees and get good jobs without falling into any of that bullshit.
I tell you, it's all about like well, for me, it was all about mind over matter. I needed to get sober. I needed it for my life, or I would have ended up being 6 feet under. Breaking the stigma. That's really what it's all about. But I needed that, so that's what it was for me. But yeah, let's get off that subject, because that's one of those subjects to where I think that there should be more influence on in society with helping the people that have the need to get sober, you know, things like that, help them instead of putting them away into these, you know, these places where it's hard to get sober. But yeah, that's another story, another subject down the road.
So I got it. I was in there, and every part of me wanted to leave, and it would have been very fucking easy. I
Yeah,
even called up my buddy who I got arrested with and was like, "Yo, dude, any way you can pick me up?" And he was like, "Yeah, no, there's not any way I can pick you up." And but then
right.
I still could have walked, hopped on a bus, and gotten out of there. It would have been very easy, and every part of me wanted to, but something, I'm not sure what, but something kept me there.
Some
Um,
type of higher power. I think that's what they refer
yeah,
to it. You know,
they
it's
do.
something greater than me or you or whoever. You know, because I don't. I mean, I don't believe in a God, but I believe that some thing, some form, somebody has kept me here on this earth long enough to live and to do this podcast and help other people. So yeah, that's what I refer to. It's a supernatural being.
So while I was in treatment, I started therapy. I started going to meetings, AA and NA, and I really I took to it. I started doing the work.
Yeah,
There's 12 steps that you're supposed to work. Well, I started
yeah,
working those 12 steps. I did everything it took because I realized that I had hit a pretty low bottom.
yeah,
I had been homeless. I had been arrested multiple times, many, many times, but this time it was worse. I was looking at if I didn't do the program, I would have been locked up for a minimum of 9 months, which isn't that long, but like at the same time, to me, I was 22 years old. Like
yeah.
9 months is a long time to a
It's a
22.
long time.
Um, so yeah, so I started doing the work. There were several times where I thought that the cravings were so bad, but I somehow persevered. My buddy Kirk, whose apartment it was that I went to the first night that I got out, and the first time I went to rehab, and they cracked open the beer the next morning. The guy that had just gotten out of prison, he was very supportive and would pick me up every once in a while and take me to the movies, or he would even go to meetings with me once in a while. But he would try to get me to go to clubs too, and
Yeah,
rave parties or whatever. And
yeah,
I remember there was one night I almost went with him, and then people at the meeting were like, "No, no, no, don't do it. It's bad." And I
yeah,
was like, "All right, fine, I won't." And honestly, though, maybe in the beginning avoid those things, but I don't want to live my life hiding. I don't want to live my life running from all of these things. So I needed a
yeah,
way. So I worked the
yeah,
steps. I started to find some sort of higher power. I tried going to different churches. I
yeah,
got into Christianity for a second there, and then realized that this is not for me. I don't believe this stuff. These people are
yeah,
fucking crazy. And no offense to any Christians on here, of course,
yeah,
but it's just not for me. The church that I had chose to go to, so I was always very much into Buddhist meditation,
yeah,
and I practiced a lot of Buddhist meditation and did a lot of readings on how to live a spiritual life through Buddhism, and I studied it a bit, and that helped me a lot. There was a book called Dharma Punks that helped me a lot. It was about using the Dharma to overcome a lot of things, and I did that. I followed a lot of the things out of that book. Um, there was a whole lot of things that I did to stay sober in the beginning, and also exercise. I started working out. Started lifting weights, but before I could even lift weights, while I was just in the treatment center, I was doing push-ups and sit-ups and crunches and doing all the
hmm
things that I knew how to do, that I could do while I was there, because I needed to take care of my body, because I never did. I needed to take care of my mind, so I would read books, and I
hmm
would talk with other people about whatever. And I needed a spiritual life. So I started meditating and praying and doing all of those things. Now, a lot of these things I don't do anymore, because I have come to a new point in my recovery. But I've also got, I got sober 9/11/03. I've got over 20 years sober.
yeah,
When I was getting high and I was a fuck up and a criminal and a piece of shit, I was in my early 20s, dude. I was in my late teens and early 20s. I was a completely different person than I am now. But I remember going through life and getting into bad relationships after I got sober. Actually, step back a second. I actually got arrested 6 times after I got sober for stupid shit, for probation violations, for driving a suspended license, for just a bunch of just stupid things because I did not know how to live life like a normal person. I was so used to that fucking chaos that like it took a while to get the chaos out of my life. And those of you that know me know that I still crave the chaos. That's why I still at 42 years old, I'm still going to punk shows and going in mosh pits and hurting myself.
You just make the chaos in a more positive manner. That's all.
Exactly. One thing that helped save me is you and I were talking earlier before we started this about when you get sober, what are you going to do? Like, there's not like that was your life, right? You would go out and you would get high and you would drink, and that's where all your friends came from, and that's where your activities came from. Like, I would go to these rave parties to get high, and I would go to these punk shows and get high. And what am I going to do now? Well, you know what? It turns out I started going to punk shows sober, and it turns out they were a lot more fun when I was sober than when I was drunk. And then I got more into the straight edge shows. There's a lot of straight edge hardcore bands out there that I got into. And there were a lot more people like me that maybe they didn't have the drug problems, but they were sober. And it was like, all right, sweet, I can hang out with these guys. So I used punk rock in hardcore really did help save my life. That was a big part of my early recovery and still today. So yeah, there was that was all the things I did. And then I would also I would started giving, after I got a year sober, I started giving talks at meetings and at treatment centers. I would go into these treatment centers and speak to the people in there that were just fresh off the streets and tell them my story. Like, hey, this is what I did, and this is what I did to recover. I worked these 12 steps, and I started helping other people and carrying the message and helping them work the steps. And it was great. And you know what? I lasted 8 years going to meetings, AA, and working the steps and all that. And then I moved to Massachusetts, and I remember going to a meeting there, and I was like, man, these they're not. The people there weren't as friendly. Like, they didn't want to talk to me, and I couldn't meet anyone. I was like, I think I need to find a new way. I don't think I need to go to these meetings anymore. I think there's other things I can do, because honestly, the reason I started going and doing these things was so I could rebuild a life for myself, build a new life that was sober and productive and
one that you actually loved, one that you actually liked to live.
Exactly. One filled with love and positivity. And I had been doing all of that for 8 years. Oh, and by the way, I guess I should step back a little bit. There was a point in my recovery where I started to feel stagnant. I was, so I had barely graduated high school before that. And after I got sober, I started painting houses and waiting on tables. Those were the things I would do. I would paint houses exterior in the summer, and in the winter I would wait on tables, and I was a server. And that's what I did. And that's how I made my money. I got an apartment, and life was good. And then I started thinking, like, man, there's got to be more to this. I had a girlfriend at the time. We lived together, and her uncle tried getting me a job with Comcast because he had worked for Comcast. And it was a good job. It had good benefits and whatever. And I was like, okay, I could do this, right? So I had put in they were going to hire me. It was a month-long process to get in there. I had to take all these tests and do all of these things and take some, and they had to do background checks and drug tests and all that. Well, the drug tests were fine. All of the things were fine. Well, the day before I was supposed to start training to actually start working for Comcast, they called me. I was still at work. It was supposed to be my last day at work at the restaurant I worked at. They called me and left me a voicemail saying, hey, we don't need you to come in. And I was like, what the actual fuck? So I called them up, and they let me know, well, you didn't, there was one of the tests came back not good. I was like, well, what do you mean? I know I passed the drug test. He's like, no, your background check. You've got a criminal record. And I was like, what the fuck? I only have misdemeanors. I thought it only said as long as there's no felonies. And they're like, yeah, no, you've got some pretty bad misdemeanors. Like I had retail fraud, a couple counts of retail fraud, and like malicious destruction of private property, B&E. I had some things on there, but they were all high misdemeanors, not felonies.
Yeah.
So, anyways, they didn't want me. So I was like, well, what the fuck am I going to do now? I was already at this point in my life where I felt stagnant. I didn't know what to do. I was like, I got to do something else. Like, yeah, I'm living a spiritual life and I'm doing all of these things. Taking care of my body and my mind, but there's got to be something else. There's got to be more than just waiting on tables and this fucking girlfriend I'm with. And she was horrible, by the way. I'm so glad that I ended up leaving her, but we'll get back to that. So I saw a commercial on TV about a school, and my sister actually went there, and it was like, oh, we have this graphic design program. Well, I had always wanted to go for graphic design. I think the second time I ever got arrested was for doing graffiti inside an abandoned building. So I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm into art. I like turning words into pictures and drawings, right? Like that's what graphic design is, right? It's not, but that's what I thought.
That's what
I was like, all right, well, fuck it. You know what? I'm going to see if I can go. So I went and I called them up and set up an appointment to meet with a guidance counselor. And like, they set me up with financial aid, and I was able to take out student loans, and I started going to school. I ended up getting my bachelor's degree in 3.5 years, which was great. And then after that is when I decided to move to Massachusetts. Step back a little bit. When I first decided that I was going to go to school, the girlfriend that I was with at the time didn't want me to go to school. She's like, I don't think it's a good idea. You don't know anything about computers. You're not going to be good at it. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, I've got to do something to better myself. And this is how you're going to fucking react. Really? Like, that's when I knew that she was not for me. Like, this girl does not want me to succeed. I want to be with somebody that is supportive of me and that wants to grow with me. Not that's going to hold me back. Yeah. What the actual fuck? Like, that's just insane to me. Yep. So I knew, okay, I got to leave this bitch. Sorry for referring to her as a bitch, but I'm sorry. But the way she responded to me, she was an actual fucking asshole. So yeah, I broke up with her, went to school, got my bachelor's degree. Moved to Massachusetts. It was not easy to get a job in graphic design. I thought it would be. Was not. I ended up applying at all these different positions, and I ended up getting a job that was listed as a graphic design position, but it was actually like a typesetting position. Very much beneath me, but not really. I knew I needed to stay humble and just work my way up and continue trying to figure shit out. Plus, I had to have a job. I didn't have a ton of money saved, and I needed to get an apartment because I was staying with my brother at the time. And I needed to get back on my feet, right? Like, I'm not a freeloader. So took the job. There was a decent amount of overtime, so that was good. And they did have a design department. They had never, ever brought anyone into the design department from the typesetting department or any other department in that company, except for one time 10 years before I started working there. Wow. I worked there for 1 year, and they brought me in to the art department. They hired me on from being a typesetter into the art department to be a production artist / graphic designer. And they only gave me a $2 an hour raise, which minimum I should have been making quite a bit more than that. But it gave me the title that I needed, and it gave me the experience that I needed. So from there, I continued that job for another year. And then I got a job with TJX. I started applying at other places. And step back a little bit further, I competed in my first facial hair competition. And another thing, I guess I should get back. I'm sorry. I'm kind of all over the place.
Hey, you know what? You're good, because here's the thing. My podcast does not have a time restraint. Okay. If I go over an hour, I go over an hour. By the way, this is coming from Mr. Marty Westerlin. Hey, you know what? That's what this great, podcast is all about. Yeah. It's all about sharing hope and positive energy. So if you can get something out of what somebody is saying, and you can take that and put that into your life and make your life better, then I consider that a success. And I think everybody else would too. So yeah.
So let's take it a step back. So I'm in Massachusetts. I go to a couple meetings there, realize they're not for me really anymore. Needed to find something else. So I started looking online for different ways I could volunteer to do things. And I found a program where you actually go in to prisons and you mentor convicts. So I did that, and I was pretty good at it. I started mentoring convicts that were in there. Most of my friends were felons. I was not. The longest I was in jail ever was 5 days. Mind you, I was in jail a lot of fucking different times, but the longest stint I ever did was 5 days. So yeah, I remember. Yeah, I had gone through detox in jail many a times, and that fucking sucked. But anyways,
I couldn't imagine trying to get sober in jail. I couldn't imagine it.
Yeah, it sucks. So anyways, I started mentoring a guy in there, and then the way it works is you go into the prison and you meet with them and you talk with them and you tell them your story, and if they want to keep working with you, they will. And usually it carries on to when they get out. Now, a lot of these guys don't know how to live life. Like I didn't know how to live life at first.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, I got arrested 6 times after I got sober. My first 2 years of sobriety, arrested 6 times. I have not been arrested since, by the way, just so you know. So in the past 18 years, I have never been arrested. So,
there you go.
So that's nice. And yeah, so I started doing that. And also another thing, I started growing a mustache before I moved to Massachusetts, when I worked in the restaurant industry, but I could never have a full beard. Because I worked in the restaurant industry, the restaurant I worked at did not allow beards. So when I moved to Mass and I got this other job where I was no longer in the restaurant industry, I started growing a beard. And me being the obsessive person that I am and always have to do everything I do over the top, I was like, man, I got this beard now. There's got to be like competitions or clubs or something. Like there's got to be something, right? And also,
and by the way, that is correct, Andrew Masson. Adulting is not easy, and some days adulting sucks. But you know what? At least we can do it in a more positive light now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so one thing I found to stay sober is I need to always constantly be helping somebody, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not constantly, but I need to carry my message or to help somebody I just need to live a positive life and to help other people. I found I was able to help other people through this mentor program. Yep. Well, then I started growing a beard and was like, man, there's got to be competitions or something. So I Googled it and found that there was a competition coming up in Somerville, Massachusetts. I was like, all right, sweet. I'm going to go ahead and the only category I thought there was, I was like, if you grow a beard, you have to do freestyle, right? Like you've got to style it some way. So I used a shitload of mustache wax to make like a double mustache. I did like a curl up and then a curl up here. And I took first place. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm fucking hooked. I met my friend Bert Mayer, who was the president of the Boston Beard Bureau, and I actually beat him in the freestyle category. He probably isn't happy about that because I'm sure his style was much better and took much more time than mine, but I was more personable. What can I say?
Yeah.
I got the crowd going. So yeah, I met him and I decided that, you know what? I got to bring one of these to Worcester, where I was living, Worcester, Massachusetts. Yeah. And I talked to him about it a bit and said, like, he didn't throw any comps, but he had been a seasoned veteran. He actually competed in Detroit. Detroit threw a competition that was actually on the TV show Whisker Wars. It was GAFBO and the Detroit Beard League that had thrown that competition. And they threw that competition at Smalls, which is where we now hold the Circus of Whiskers.
Talking about full circle. Holy cow.
Yeah, totally. And honestly, that competition was the day after I moved to Massachusetts. I actually had a flyer for it and I had a handlebar mustache at the time. If I wasn't moving, I would have been there. But anyways, I didn't go. I moved to Massachusetts instead. Ended up competing a year later. And then I ended up throwing my first competition about 6 months after that. I sold the venue out. I had the Boston Beard Bureau behind me. They were helping me out with some things, but really I did most of the legwork. It turned into an annual competition there. We did it 4 years. We even did it after I moved back to Detroit. I did it from Detroit, and I had them help me. But I was trying to get them to like pass the torch. Like, you guys keep this going. It's your competition. You're the Boston Beard Bureau. It's in Worcester, Massachusetts. I can't keep doing it because I got the Circus of Whiskers now in Detroit, and I got my own club. Like, I got shit I got to do. You guys do that, and they dropped the ball. Like, they got into other things, whatever. So it did die out. But I found that competitive bearding, by throwing these charity competitions, that helped me a lot. Helped me spiritually, because I was giving back to the community. The Whiskered Wonderland that I was doing in Worcester, Massachusetts, that was to raise money for a child life fund. So it was for sick kids in the hospital. So to help them out, I was also still doing the mentor thing. And then when I moved back to Detroit, I threw the Circus of Whiskers, and that was for animal welfare. But we also did other things as a club. So, and we still do other things as a club. Like, we would collect clothes and whatnot for the homeless and hand them out to the homeless, and we would feed the homeless, and we paid for a taco truck and like actually fed the homeless, and we do all of these other things as a facial hair club. And honestly, like, I have used competitive bearding as a way to live a spiritual life. I know that you guys, it may not look like it, but it totally is a part of my spiritual life.
It's because you're here you are, you're sober now, you're living the right life, life, and you're enriching other people's lives, but you're also enriching your own life because you're giving back to the people who you once were. You were once homeless. You were once battling addictions and going through all that, and here you are now as a sober member of society, giving back to those people, and helping, and that's what, like I said before, this isn't really all about breeding, but it's a way, like, for me, like, that breeding kept me away from drugs, like, breeding has kept me on the straight and narrow, so to speak, but it's also helped me realize that, through charity work, no matter what I'm going through, there's somebody out there worse than I am right now, dealing with more bullcrap than I could ever imagine dealing with. So, I mean, look at the full circle there. You know what I'm saying? So, that's
absolutely
amazing.
Another thing is, like, if I'm not moving forward, I'm moving backward, right? Yeah. That's the way I look at life now. Or I don't like to become stagnant. Like, the last time I actually felt stagnant was when I decided to go to school. And then I've continually always had something that I was working towards, or something that I was working on to help other people or whatever. And now, since all of that, so I went from being homeless to now I teach at a university. And I also work as a graphical software engineer for one of the big three, for Chrysler, or Stellantis, actually. I have a lot of really good things in my life. So I have a couple of good jobs. I'm able to give back. Honestly, the reason I teach is so I can give back. I know that that's not the same kind of giving back they're talking about in AA and NA and those 12-step programs, but it works for me. It allows me to share knowledge with the youth to help them go into something else. Like, I want to continue helping others. I'm a stepfather. I absolutely love being a stepfather. I always wanted kids of my own, but I fell in love with a woman who already had 2 kids, and she didn't want any more. And I'm okay with being a stepdad. It's fucking great, man. I take my stepdaughter to the gym with me all the time. She works out with me. I try to instill a positive message in these kids. They're not kids per se. She just turned 16.
Yeah, they're
son is 22, about to be 23.
Oh, so, yeah, teenagers and adults.
Yeah, my stepson is the age I was when I got sober, which is fucking crazy to me.
Golly,
like, the things I had been through by the time I was his age compared to what he's been through, I'm just like, but he actually has been through a lot, because he was brought up with a single mother who'd never had a lot of money, and she did it all on her own. His dad is a fucking piece of shit who was MIA. So like, yeah, he's definitely been through hardship. But yeah, man, I don't know. I guess I can leave it up for questions now.
But look at this. Jeez. That's so.
I didn't finish reading it. Sorry.
Oh, let me pop it back up there. Sorry.
So I personally don't think someone that has only lived a privileged life doesn't fully understand how much the small acts of charity go. It's great to give money to the less privileged, but living that life before giving, I 100% agree.
Hands down.
I 100% agree.
And here's the thing. I came from a family to where I didn't have to worry about anything, but it wasn't until I did what Kyle wanted to do and be, who I thought I should be. That's when I started to worry about. But yeah, I mean, you're spot on. Once you live that life of crap, and you see it hands down first in the face, every single day, and when you finally grow up, so to speak, and become a better person, it's then that you realize that I owe everything I am to the person that I was and the decisions that I made to become better.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a great motivator. I really do. Yeah. It's what motivates me. Is where I came from. Is what motivates me to continue on with Murder City. To continue on, like, first off, like, we've got a great community. Like, I have a group chat with Murder City, and oftentimes we're talking about issues that we're going through. It's almost like we've got our own little, like, men's circle, and women too, but we're able to help each other in our group chat or at our meetings, and it really, it's a great thing. And I hope other clubs are like that. I assume they are, but I don't know. I know that's how we are.
That's what you did through all of this, through everything you went through in your life, through getting sober and helping others. You found your purpose,
100%.
And that's what, and I say this all the time on my podcast. If you're struggling with anything, no matter whether it be mental health, because that's a hard thing, whether it be addiction, whether it be just not just anything, just go out there and help somebody else. Because I can tell you right now, once you do that, you'll help yourself way more than you thought you would ever be. And then let's say you want to do something charitable, you want to give back, start doing things like that. And here's the thing, again, not a bearding podcast, but it doesn't matter if you have a beard or not. One of the most open, accepting places and communities I've ever been involved in is the bearding community. So I mean, for those of you who out there who are looking for a way to give back or to help others, that is the way to do it. And as Marty says, I've got to be the person who gets help, advice, be vulnerable, be real, and just really talk about what's going on. Yes, and you know what? Here's the thing. That's part of opening up about whatever you're going through in life is a hard thing to do. Trust me. There are, like today, I'll be honest, I didn't want to do the podcast. I was tired, but my way of
I was falling asleep at work today.
Yes, but and it's not like it's not like I felt like I had an obligation to those who were gonna to watch or listen. It was, you know what, Kyle, we're not gonna do what you want to do today. Let's do something to reach out and to help other people. That's why I started this podcast to begin with, was for anybody who, doesn't matter if you're man or woman, whatever you identify as, for you to come be a part of this group of individuals and for you to get something positive out of it. Now, we're going a minute, well, an hour and 5 minutes into it, so I think it's almost time to wrap up. Got one question for you, Brad, that I like to ask every single guest that comes on. If there's something that you could say to somebody right now, like positive or a word of encouragement, to help somebody out, what would it be?
Fuck, man. To keep going, it gets better. Like it really does. There were many a times in my life that I wanted to give up, that I thought that it was over. Fuck it. I wanted to say fuck it and throw in the towel and just give up, but you can't do that. If you keep going, the way will present itself. But you have to look for it. So keep on going. And no matter what you're going through, and honestly, if you're struggling, reach out for help. I think that's another important thing, is you got to reach out for help. If I didn't reach out for help, I'd be dead, man. Oh, my friend Kirk that I was telling you about, who threw me that party, he died after I had 2 years sober from a heroin overdose. My friend's brother, who introduced me to heroin, he died from a heroin overdose after I had 1 year sober. I have lost an average of at least one person a year since I got sober. My friend, basically the whole crew that I rolled with for a while at these rave parties and other places, there's 2 of us left. My buddy who I got arrested with and myself. But there was Bill, who died from a drug overdose. Jessen was shot and killed in Pontiac. Kirk died from a heroin overdose. And it's just... it fucking sucks, man. I've lost so many people in my life that I'm almost numb to it now. Oh, my friends whose couch I stayed on, it was 2 brothers. Kenny just died last year. I was at his memorial recently, and that hurt, man.
Yeah.
So you got to keep trying. You got to ask for help, and you got to keep moving on, because
even if it's hard, and like Andrew said. He said he hates opening up to others and being vulnerable, but everyone needs to find that person or the group you can completely open up with and let your walls down, because bottling it up helps no one. It doesn't. I mean, no. Yeah, it doesn't.
I agree.
Nobody. Yeah, I mean, it helps nobody. So, I mean, I'm here to tell you, like Marty or whoever else, you don't know me from a hill of beans. I'm just a guy doing a podcast, but I have some great ears, and my buddy Brad here has great ears. My buddy Andrew, Andrew Matson is hopefully a guest I'll be having on here soon. I haven't asked him, but I can't just ask him now. But yes, it takes courage to ask for help than to not. That's all it takes. If you think it, if you're thinking, oh man, maybe I should ask for help, then don't think it, do it.
So essentially, if we were to take this back to the 12 steps or even an 8-step program or anything, the very first step is to admit you have a problem, and by admitting you're asking for help. So if you go ahead and ask for help, that's actually the first step to overcoming what you need help from.
Yeah.
So you ask for that help, and then you start moving forward and start figuring out the rest of the path. But everybody's path is different. A lot of my friends what's that?
It doesn't come easy. Yeah, no. Nothing. Yeah.
Well, a lot of my friends that I got sober with, a few of them have passed away. A lot of them still go to meetings. I do not. Every once in a while I'll go to support them, but I found another way. And it's not even another way. It's that I evolved. I have found that I never wanted to make AA or NA or any sort of 12-step program, or the Refuge Recovery, which is the Buddhist program that I sort of mentioned. I never wanted to make any of those my life. I wanted to use those as tools to rebuild a new life for myself. Yeah. I have rebuilt that life, and I have evolved from those things, but I owe everything I have to those things.
Yep. So yeah. Like Michelle said, you did a more holistic approach for yourself. It and that's the thing. Like, and I'm gonna wrap up the program because it's been an hour and 10 minutes, and it's been a long day. But it doesn't
Really
matter
cool.
how you what choices you make in life to make a more positive you. Just make those choices. Whether it's going to a church, a gym, or a
All of the
meeting,
above.
all the above. Um, as long as you talk or start to talk, because here's the thing. Uh, as long as you reach out, people will listen. Trust me. You know, and as long as you are open to making the changes that you need to make to be a more positive you, then that's all that matters. But Brad, thank you again, man, for coming on. As you can tell, and I mean, I don't know if you can see the chat on your end, but I can see it on my end, and
No.
it's
Cool.
been
Good.
going, it's been
Hey,
going crazy.
can I do one little shout out?
Yeah, man, go ahead, shout out.
November 11th, Circus of Whiskers, Detroit,
Be there.
Michigan. Come join. Check out circusofwhiskers.com for any info you want.
Yep.
It's the party that we throw. It's a lot of fun. It's
It is
burlesque,
and,
drag, sideshow acts, and it's a facial hair competition. And
you
it's
get
all for
to help
charity.
out charity. Yes.
It is. And we will have, it's to raise money for the Detroit Animal Welfare Group, but we will also have Suck at Suicide there, which is a suicide prevention program. They will be there selling merch and sharing their knowledge and all of the great things that they do.
So yeah, if you're near the Detroit area, heck, if you're not near the Detroit area on November 11th, and you're looking for something positive to do, go up to Detroit, check out the Murder City Facial Hair Crew. Again, and I'm just going to keep Brad on as I end the show. Again, as I said earlier, remember a dear friend of the show, Natalie Johnson. Remember her on November the 13th, as she'll be going through her kidney transplant.
Thank you, Big and Al.
Yeah, yep. It's amazing things when people step up to become organ tissue donors. Register to be one. All right, that's all I'm gonna say is register to become an organ and tissue donor, because you never know who you might help out. Yeah, and it just so happens, that the kidney that she's getting is coming from a member of the British community, which Natalie is a member of. And yeah, as Andrew Matson says, if you can't make it out to Circus of Whiskers next year, 2024, the Great American Beard and Mustache Championships, right, in Detroit, right, Detroit.
Yes,
right,
yes.
That's
going to be
Brad's also pushing that. So come
well,
on.
My club and I, yeah.
Yes, because again, that will be for charity as well. But stay tuned in 2 weeks. I'll be having a special Veterans Day episode. I'll have none other than Chris Dr. Wilson on. Those of you who are in the British community know Chris. Chris was actually a medic in the military, in the Army. So he'll come on and be talking about his story. And that episode will actually not be live. It'll be taped because I have a... Oh, by the way, Michaela says, hello, Uncle Brad.
Michaela!
Michaela, welcome to the show. But we're ending it, but you can go back and watch it. It's a great one. You'll be proud of Uncle Brad.
Tell your parents I said hi.
Yes, but
actually, I got a text from her mom too. But let me see what it says.
Tune in on November 10th.
She said I did great
for the episode with Chris Doc Wilson. And again, guys and gals. Oh, here's somebody else that you know.
There she is. That's who was texting me. That's Michaela's mom. Sam's the best. Yeah. So my friend Zach that I briefly talk about that I met the first time I was in rehab. That's his wife.
Yes, that's why.
His wife and daughter.
Yeah. Actually, Chris will be getting my mustache because my mustache will actually be gone before then.
You should keep it, man.
I know.
It? Mustache is king.
I don't think my wife heard that.
Mustache is king. Keep it.
Well, so I'm just gonna tell everybody why I shaved my beard, why I did. So I have. See, my wife laughed. She said, "LOL." So I have psoriasis, and the other day it's been really bothering me really bad. Like it's been like itchy, and so I've been scratching at it and causing it to bleed. Well, the other day I made it bleed really bad, so I shaved off the beard. No, I did not approach the wife first, and I got scolded for it. Okay, it's that's what happens. So if you're married, kids, and you do something drastic without letting your other partner know, just remember there's going to be repercussions. Okay, and that's me losing the stash. But thank you all for tuning in tonight. It's been a great positive episode. I I learned things tonight that I never knew about Brad Felipe Petrinec. I can tell you right now, if you've never received a Christmas card from this guy, all right, his Christmas cards are hands down the best. Okay,
Thank you.
I actually have one. Uh, it was him and his cat was wearing bunny ears, and I believe you were wearing bunny ears too.
No, I was Hugh Hefner. I was in my robe.
Yes, that's right. Yes,
Yeah, my dog and my cat both had bunny ears on because they were my Playboy bunnies.
it
And
was
I
great.
yeah, I was in a robe, Hugh Hefner robe on the cover, and on
Yeah.
the inside, well,
Well, yeah, the inside
very
was
well.
yes, yes,
I
and
can't
by
do
the
shit
way,
like that anymore. I got
big
stepkids now.
yeah, and by the way, prayers are going out to Jeff Harris's wife as she is battling the cancer. You know, going through all that stuff right now. So big prayers out to Chicken Wings' wife. But yeah, thank you all again. November 10th, be here, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Chris Doc Wilson will be on the program. You'll be able to comment, but I won't be able to say hi because it'll be taped. But with that, guys, do something positive for somebody else, and then in return, help yourself. So, good night, guys. Have a great one.
Thanks for having me, dude. I'll see you.
Hey,
Bye,
thank you.
everyone.